Um, uh, I knew as when I was a resident in Iowa, he was one of our transplant fellows. He graduated from uh, medical school at the Tecnologico de Monterrey School of Medicine in Monterrey, Mexico in 1994, and then did his surgical residency also in Mexico at the Mexican Institute of Social Security. And then he did a research fellowship in Michigan, and then joined us in Iowa. While he was in Iowa, he was always telling me about his hometown of Veracruz and its wonderful coffee shop. And he went on after fellowship to go return to Veracruz, where he opened his own transplant center. And I've been sort of intermittently following along and catching up to him over the years at various meetings, and it's always been a pleasure to hear about his growing transplant center in Mexico. So he is also was the editor of the official journal of the Mexican Society of Transplantation, and has done over 700 kidney transplants. And he's quite the Instagrammer. He has a wonderful Kardashian-like Instagram, maybe not Kardashian-like, but quality-wise, Instagram account chronicling his practice of medicine in Mexico. And I wanted to invite Gustavo to meet with us today to talk about transplantation in Mexico, because we oftentimes have patients from Mexico, and we always wonder what kind of resources are available in Mexico for these people. So Gustavo, thanks so much for talking to us today.
No, thank you, Dave, for the invitation. Hi to everybody. It's really a pleasure to talk to you guys about the little things we do here in my hometown in Veracruz. And I think I'm going to share the screen. I don't know if it's already set. Huh? I don't know, guys, if you can tell me.
The screen is up, but go ahead and play the slideshow.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I'm set. Is that right?
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is what we're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about organ transplantation here in Mexico. And I mean, we can talk hours and hours and hours, but we're going to try to make it very brief and and that you guys don't fall asleep while I'm talking. I don't have anything to disclose, actually. And the learning objectives of this talk will be, you guys probably and hopefully will understand how transplant is organized here in Mexico. We're going to try to explain how is the transplant care in Mexico, and we're going to talk a little bit just about what we have done here in Veracruz for the past. I don't know. I returned here to Veracruz in 2002, so it's almost close to 20 years since I got here. When I got here, there was just one transplant center which did less than 20 kidneys a year. They didn't have any RPO. They even haven't done a deceased donor. So I'm kind of like the guy who did the first deceased donor here in the state. I did the first pediatric kidney transplant. I did the first liver transplant years ago, and I've been doing a couple of things over there, which I'm going to tell you about. And it's not about the presentation. It's not about me. The presentation is about how things are done here in Mexico and how things are done in Veracruz. So this picture of me, I'm in the middle. This is the time when I was in Iowa doing my fellowship. The guy in the right with the tie is Dr. Daniel Katz, who's a student attending, a transplant surgeon back at the University of Iowa. The other one's a patient. And this is when I was a fellow, and Dr. Days was the general surgery resident. That picture is about 20 years ago and 40 pounds ago, and like 10,000 gray hairs ago, actually. And a lot of hair actually ago also. So anyway, this is where I was trained, and this is where I tried to learn as much as I could back in those days. I did my fellowship from 2000 to 2002. And for you guys who don't know where is Veracruz, this is Mexico. This is obviously you can see there Cancun, which always people talk about what's Cancun in Mexico, but this is Veracruz. Veracruz is in the Gulf Coast. It was the place where the Spaniards actually arrived from Spain to conquer us or to make us, part of the colony or whatever. So it's a straight line from Mexico City. It's a 4-hour drive, half an hour flight, and you can see where do I live. And this is how it looks, actually. You can see that's the port on the left, and the other one is the aquarium on the right. I live actually a couple of blocks over there, inside inside town. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 blocks from the aquarium. So anyway, that's how Veracruz looks like in a very, in any given day. So for you guys to understand how is Mexico organized, you have to understand how medicine is actually done in Mexico. So in Mexico, the health system is 2 sectors: is the private and is the public. And the private sector is they receive patients without insurance, they have insurance, or they pay out of pocket. The Social Security, there's hospitals, there are institutes, and there are other people who are included in the public sectors. So people who are, as you can read over there, formal economy workers, active or retired, they're entitled to Social Security, which is the Mexican Institute of Social Security, or IMSS. The Mexican Institute of Social Security covers 80% of the population, so that's public. And the self-employed, the informal economy workers, the people who are unemployed, they're attended by the Federal Ministry of Health. So if you take 100 patients in Mexico, 80% of the patients are covered by Social Security, and 20% are covered, 10% by Ministry of Health, and 10% by private, like insurance or out of pocket. So that's basically how can you divide also transplant. And you're going to see it, ahead in a couple of slides. This is a picture of a private hospital. This is called Star America. This is in Veracruz, actually. This is when I do my private kidney transplants. This is a hospital of the Social Security. This is one, actually, I'm right now, I'm sitting in my office in that one. And this is the hospital on the Federal Health of Ministry of Health. I usually go there and supposedly work in the afternoon because sometimes I don't have a lot of work over there, but I do go there. I have the position. I'm the program director of these 3 hospitals, actually. So I basically cover, as program directors, all the 2 hospitals in town. This is shows you actually how you guys back in the States report your kidney data report. This probably, so to this I usually try to read them because it has a lot of nice information, but we don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have that report. So we do have a federal administration, organization, but it's called SENATRA, as you can read there, which is the National Center of Transplantation, and they are supposed to give us our national data and our statistics. But our statistics are not as good as you guys, and our reports are not as good as you guys have. So what I'm showing you in the next slides is about what we receive from SENATRA. I have to put you, this is the number of patients around the waiting list nationally in the whole country. I put you the 2019 and the 2020 just to make sure 2 things, that they didn't change much. I don't know why. And obviously because in 2020 we have this COVID-19, which actually affects us quite hard in terms of transplantation, and you're going to see it in the next couple of slides. But you can see the majority of patients are waiting for a kidney, and then the other problem that you will see in the slide is that we have very few people waiting for livers. Why? Because we don't have a lot of places that do livers. For example, in my case, I did the first, I did 5 livers years ago. Somewhere around 2004 or no, 2005 probably. And the problem that I have, and I decided to quit doing livers and just send the livers elsewhere, is that I did, at that time I was completely alone here in my town. So I did the procurement, I did the organ procurement surgery, and I did the liver transplant. And then after that time, it took me 8 to 10 hours because I'm still slow doing surgery. But after 8 to 10 hours doing a liver, I look around the OR and I saw 2 kidneys in the market. So I said, like, no, I'm going to be here like for 24 hours. So I decided at a time after doing a couple of 3 or 5 liver transplants that it was completely impossible to be a 3-organ surgeon. I don't even think about pancreases. So I decided just to do livers because I do HPV surgery, but it's completely different because it's it's an elective case, you start at 8 a.m. in the morning and then you finish by noon. So, and sometimes, at that time I had to do the organ procurement, I have to do both kidneys. So I decided to stop doing livers. So for example, here in Veracruz, we don't do livers. But you can see there's a small amount of patients waiting for livers because there's not a lot of liver surgeons back here in Mexico, mostly kidney surgeons. This is as you can see, this is the waiting list in terms of, as I told you, the type of medicine health system that we have. You see the first one, the biggest one is the Social Security. After that is private, and then it becomes the Ministry of Health and another Social Security such as ISTE. Sedena is the military, actually. So you can see that most of the people waiting for kidneys or for livers or for any organ are in Social Security. This is the report that we have in kidney. You can see that we have a significant drop in kidney transplantation in 2020. We usually were running up about 3,000 kidney transplants, and then we ended up doing last year like less than 1,000. That's basically mostly about COVID-19. Most of the transplant centers actually closed. As I was telling Dr. Scott before I started to talk to you guys, we didn't do any transplant like for 6 months. We stopped. The hospital became almost COVID-19 patients. And when we didn't have elective surgery also, the only thing we had was cardiac surgery, surgical oncology, and then a couple of things of neurosurgery. And for example, we stopped doing cholecystectomies, hernias, and everything. So we just restarted in November, last days of November and December, and we're picking up a little bit in terms of kidney transplantation over this year. We did have a couple of donors, so we actually, I can say that right now in 2021, we are the hospital and Social Security that we have performed the most amount of kidney transplants in Mexico because our state didn't have as hard COVID-19 cases as other places have. But as you can see, we're down on the numbers. The proportion of living-related versus diseased kidney transplant is 70% or 30%. 70% living donors and 30% deceased. We don't have as much as deceased donors as you guys have. This is other things that I've been fighting for years and years and years to do. And well, you can see the numbers drop in 2020, but the proportion is still there. And for example, here in Veracruz, which you're going to see in the next slides, we are. Let me show you. You can see that. Yeah, there you go. This is the total amount of kidney transplant. The arrows are pointing to Veracruz. So Veracruz is usually, the state of Veracruz is usually between 5th and 10th rank in number of kidney transplants, total kidney transplants done in Mexico. And we do have some activity, as you can say, and, but we don't compete with Mexico City, for example. There are places like Jalisco that are more crowded in terms of population itself and transplant activity. So that's it. And you're going to see the total amount of kidney transplant. These are the statistics we received from Sinatra. You can see that the most amount of kidney transplants are performed in Social Security, as I explained to you, and how medicine is done here. You can see here, once again, this is the table that shows deceased donor kidney transplant. Veracruz is, I think, number 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're ranking over there between 5 and 10 in terms of deceased donor activity in Mexico. You can see that it's very, very sad to see 2020 numbers, but this is how we're there. And it's not that I'm proud of, but COVID-19 in Mexico here has hit it very hard. So, but basically in Veracruz, we do have some transplant activity in terms of kidneys and a little bit in terms of organ donation itself. These are the number of livers that you can see. There's a big drop, you see, and this is what I told you. We have a lot of patients waiting, and we don't do a lot of livers. The number dropped to less than 100 last year. And it's very interesting, the amount of, it's very interesting, two things that I'm going to show you. First one is that the most amount of liver transplants are done in Mexico City, which is the proudest city, actually, in Mexico in the world. And then the next state is Jalisco, which is also one of the proudest states in Mexico. And then the one is the state of Nuevo León, which is also the third proudest state in terms of population. So basically, liver transplants are performed in places where there's a lot of infrastructure. And the other thing that is quite interesting is that the most amount of liver transplants are done in private sector. So it's not that the paid organs. It's about that private sectors have sufficient tools, infrastructure, hospital, blood banks to cover to do a liver transplant with good results. That's a difference of kidney transplants, which are mostly performed in Social Security. What about transplant surgery? We do have formal fellows by now. This slide shows you two things. It took us years to organize it. And I'm actually, you can see these 13 guys over there. Those are the first 13 guys who are board certified to do transplant surgery. The board certification is by the Mexican Board of Surgery. And then by now, we have the transplant surgery organized in terms of kidneys and in terms of liver transplant training. There's 13 guys, 9 guys out of those 13 were trained in the US, including myself. And the other 4 were trained in Spain, mostly in Barcelona, which actually is very famous for doing livers. And you can see that's my certificate. Actually, my certificate is the first one who was given by the Mexican Board of Surgery. My number is 001. And it says that it's closed in 2021, and I have to recertify myself this year because I'm the recertifying committee. And anyway, so I'm picking all the information to recertify myself. So we're getting organized in terms of transplant surgery. We don't have transplant nephrology fellows. They're not completely as organized as us at transplant surgery, but they do have the training and they don't have board certification yet. We're fighting for them also to get board certification in nephrology, and hopefully next year they will. But that's up to them. So now you see how things are organized in Mexico, and then how do we take care of the patients of transplant patients here in Mexico? Well, you can see on the right, and I put I put what you guys do in terms of, for example, in disease donation in terms of organ allocation. You guys have KDPI, you guys have EPTS, you guys have MELT and PELT. We have that. Senatra in Mexico is based on this criteria that you can see here, which is urgency, opportunity, because some patients don't have the opportunity, the survival, which is expected benefit, the histocompatibility, which is PRA or HLA, and other medical criteria. If you can see these phrases, you can translate the KDPI, and the EPTS and the MELT and PELT, but we don't have that organized as you guys have. That, for example, if a patient has a EPTS of less than 20, he should receive a kidney that is KDPI less than 20. And for example, if you guys have a liver candidate, which is like 40 of male, or if you get extra points for HCC and everything, we don't have that organized because our organ donor is not as much as you guys have, as I told you, because it's close to 30%. If we do have, hopefully by the time we have more organ donation, we can use your criteria, guys. But anyway, we don't have it as low as you guys have, because this, as you can see, in Mexico is by law. But anyway, hopefully we can, we can start applying this KDPI. This is like show you the protocols that I'm showing you. Most of the transplant centers have their own protocols, in terms of patient workup, in terms of immunosuppression, in terms of patient care and follow-up. This one, the one it says is a clinical practice advice that mostly includes a lot of Social Security, but it's kind of like this it's a brief outline because, for example, what we do here in Veracruz is completely different what guys do in Social Security in Guadalajara, which is the state of Jalisco, or Mexico City. And for example, the one that it says over there is in Mexico City, which is Nutrición, which is it's a National Institute of Health, for call it in that way, which is a little bit famous in Mexico and outside of Mexico. They do have very good results also. So basically, transplant centers have a brief outline on how things should be done, but basically we do it in terms of how we decide to. And this one shows, this is from the Mexican Journal of Transplantation. Last year, we did have a consensus on how to do the patient recipient protocol, and then we published it. But I don't think we have had this much impact that we should, because it's just it has been passed or as a law, or it's not completely endorsed by the federal administration. It's not completely endorsed by Senatra. So basically, still every transplant center does as much as they want, as they think they should be done. In terms of kidney transplant, the procedure is pretty much the same one, and the nephrectomy is pretty much the same one, and the surgical procedure itself is pretty much the same one. I think this is a kidney we did like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't know, but as you can see, the procedure itself is pretty much the same. What do we have for immunosuppression? I think we mostly have everything. The only thing we don't have is belatacept. That is not in Mexico. We don't have belatacept in Mexico. But the rest of the things we do have, we have timeglobulin, we have aciliximab, we have CNIs, we have 2 mTORs. But the thing is, we have it according to different institutions. For example, here in the Social Security, we don't have everolimus, and we don't have enteric-coated MMF in Social Security. But if you go to another Social Security, they might have it. For example, the military system, the people from Serena, which basically takes care of the Navy patients and the military patients and the VO patients, the veterans patients, they do have, for example, everolimus, they do have myfortic. But the other thing that we also suffer sometimes is that, as you can see, most of the immunosuppression is not, it's generic actually. And the problem that we might have is that sometimes we receive this one, and if you can see the other image, it's another completely laboratory. So I think if you guys, mostly the recommendation is that you use the same generic. But here in the Social Security, we have to do at 1 month we receive it, for example, this one PISA, and the next one we receive this RAM, and then the next one we probably will receive Boston Scientific, and then we have different brands and brands and brands. So we have to keep up with levels, with changes. Sometimes the pharmacokinetic are not although they claim it's the same one because it's generic, sometimes we do have a little trouble. So we have to be very careful with what we prescribe in terms of immunosuppression here in the Social Security. So what we do here in Veracruz. Okay. Veracruz, as I told you, this is a slide from data from Sinatra. That was years ago. This is the time we were in the top 5. We usually do, this is our hospital, this is Social Security, mostly where we do mostly the most of the kidney transplants. The other 2 hospitals, they do probably less than 20 a year. And that actually, this 100 plus the other 20 comprise all the kidney transplant activity that we do here in the state. There's other city that do kidney transplant, which is called Jalapa, which is the state capital actually. But the state capital is less populated than ours. We have less, they have less population, and they only have 1 hospital that they do kidneys once in a while, not as routine as we do. But anyway, this slide shows you that we usually somewhere in the 5 to 10, the top rank in the kidney transplant activity, in terms of hospital, in terms of the state also. This is the kidney transplant team that you're going to see. I'm going to introduce you guys to this one. This is the urologist. This is Dr. Luis Jimenez. And it's kind of funny because he went to elementary school with me. I didn't know he was becoming a urologist because I left Veracruz in high school, and then I studied medicine in Monterey, as Dr. Scott says, and then I did my residency in Mexico City, and then I did my transplant fellow in the US. And then when I arrived here, he was here, and he was the urologist, and I said, well, okay, did we go to elementary together? And we finally reconnected, and then he's the chief of urology right now. He, as you can see, he's Captain America custom, but anyway, he's like the same age that I am. These are my son and my, no, it's not my son, but I call him my son. This is Dr. Pedro Moreno, who's the chief, the acting chief right now. I'm not the chief, I'm the program director, which I'm basically the responsible for the authorities. So if these guys do something wrong, the guy who will go to jail is me. So I basically keep, pushing them to do things right. This is Dr. Pedro Moreno. This is Dr. Lucy Cruz. She was our first fellow here at Veracruz, and she's next to me over there. You can see it over there. And she's over here because we have to cancel the transplant today because the PCR for COVID-19 didn't arrive in time, so we have to cancel the surgery. And she was supposed to do the surgery. She's a transplant surgeon by now, but she was the first transplant fellow with it here. And this is the youngest urologist who is Carlos Allende. He was my resident, he was my intern. So I basically, as you can see, I've been training my whole team. This one is the oldest nephrology, Dr. Mendez. This is a patient who actually wrote a book and dedicated it to us. Dr. Mendez did the residency in nephrology in Mexico City, and he was a resident with me when I was a general surgery resident back in Mexico. So I, once again, by luck and serendipity, I found it here in Veracruz and say, again, what the hell are you doing here? So I have to put up with him for more than 25 years ago. So, I mean, he's getting close to retire because here in Mexico, Social Security, we usually work for 30 years and then we retired and then we step down and then we do private practice. He's close to, I'm 5 years ahead of, he's 5 years ahead of me. So, but anyway, he's the oldest nephrologist. This is the oldest nephrologist who's almost an artist. He's a good-looking guy, Dr. Sandro Avila. And this is our anesthesiologist, Dr. University, as you can see. This is the whole transplant team. This is the team where we do 100 and 120 kidneys a year. The thing is, since you guys have noticed that Mandy Williams is Mandy Williams trying to do something. Go ahead, Mandy Williams, whatever you want to do. Okay. This slide, since I told you guys, Sinatra doesn't give us a lot of statistics. So we try to perform our own statistics to know what's going on in our program. And the statistics becomes articles or manuscripts published anywhere. This is something we did in 2020, which is for waiting list analysis of 2018. As you can see, that's the title. And the idea to show you this article is just to show you things about, hold on, there you go. Okay, there you go. How many patients we have here in Veracruz in the waiting list? We have 467. Most of them are male, or mean age is 38 years. And this is our PRA that we manage in the waiting list, 20%, as you can see. Close to 20, yeah, 20%, 20 and 12%, depending on the peer and the class 1, class 2. Or EPTS is close to 20%, and the waiting time is close to 3 years. So, and this part of the slide is going to show you the difference between patients who does get a kidney, a deceased donor, and patients who are still on the list. As you can see over here, you can say that patients who got a deceased donor were younger than the rest of the patients who are active or inactive. Inactive is basically because they were dropped from the list even if they're dead, or we couldn't find it because sometimes they don't have a phone or they use Social Security or different, and we classify them as inactive. So basically, as you can see here, patients who got a deceased donor, they're younger compared to the other guys. They are being dialysis for years and years and years, 7 years mostly. The PRA, they have a lower PRA class. As you can see, PRA class 1 is 2% compared to the other guys, which is 20%. And the time on the waiting list is they do receive a kidney usually in 5 years. And so people usually, as you can see here, the minimum waiting time is 3 years, but we receive a kidney in 4 years. So that's basically how we did in terms of deceased donors. This slide is going to show you, this is another article that was published in Transplantation Proceeding about what we do in terms of deceased donor, in terms of, as you can see here, how our donors, as you can see, our donors are young. They have 33 years of age. The main cause of this is trauma. We still have a lot of donor cycles or a lot of MBAs. Of donor parent is pretty good, 1.1, as you can see. And Mexican donors, they're not usually standard criteria donors because they are trauma patients, they're young patients, so their craniums are very good. So that's basically what we transplant in terms of deceased donors. This is for graft survival, the dead sensor graft survival. You can see that 3-year graft survival is close to 60%. And then we usually use thymoglobulin for induction in terms of deceased donor and also living donor. You can see in the next slide. And we use 5 milligrams per kilo, so which is basically standard. This other article that is just published in also Transplantation Proceeding in the idea, because they're published in Transplantation Proceeding because all these articles, all these abstracts were presented in the Latino American Congress of Transplantation, and Latino American Congress, they do have this journal as their official journal, so they gave us the opportunity to publish over there. This is an RCT we did a couple years ago. We carry, if Dr. Stowe remembers, but I don't think he remembers, I published this poster, I presented this poster in an ATC in 2018 or 2017 when we saw each other in Boston, I think, or I don't know where, yeah, I think in Boston. We did have this poster presented, the preliminary data, the 6 months data. And the idea is we compare the use of basiliximab in low-risk living donors against 3 milligrams per kilogram of thymoglobulin. And then we ended up doing a 1-year follow-up. And you can see the idea here is we have the same results using 3 milligrams per kilogram of thymoglobulin against basiliximab. But the idea is that we do have an acute rejection rate of less than 10%. And then we have a patient and graft survival, patient survival close to 100% and the graft survival above 90%. So in this paper, we can see that the use of thymoglobulin and 3 milligrams per kilo in low-risk living related, which is PRA less than 20, living related, no transfusions, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the usual concept of low risk, you can use 3 milligrams without any trouble, 3 milligrams of thymoglobulin total dose without any trouble. And it's actually cheaper here in Mexico than doing it with basiliximab. But besides that, the idea of the presentation here with you guys is that this is our 1-year graft and patient survival, and this is on 1-year rejection rate. So we basically try to do things the best way we can do. And then the idea of trying to get all results together, sometimes they ended up in publications because that's the only way here in Mexico that we can tell the other transplant centers that we're trying to do the things in the right way. So if you get into PubMed and you put kidney transplantation there, because Mexico, you're gonna find results. It's not that we do a lot of research in terms of innovation or in terms of new immunosuppression, because as you can see, we don't have new immunosuppression, but we try to comply and get all our results together and try to publish it. For example, you can see this one, which you can see at the end is the effect of PRA in graft survival in donor, which is mostly collect our PRAs of all the patients and see how we do. So that's basically what we try to do. And I'm going to deviate a little bit this. So we're going to talk just a little bit about transplant tourism because it's quite an issue that you guys might have. People who might travel here to Mexico to receive a kidney transplant. So I'm going to present you this small case, which is Aurelio. Aurelio was 24 years old when he came back. He came back from South Carolina. He was a construction worker, and he was on hemodialysis. Back there, he was illegal, and he was from this small town in Veracruz. And he showed up to the general hospital, the public hospital that is not Social Security. I said, "Well, I need a transplant." So as you can see, I mean, what did we offer to Aurelio? Aurelio, I mean, did he go back to the U.S. or we didn't have health care for him because, you know, he was receiving dialysis, hemodialysis in the U.S. or just in the back or what we did? And what we did with Aurelio was this. Aurelio had a brother who gave him a kidney years ago, as you can see, in 2006, and at the Hospital General, which is a public hospital. We induced him with basiliximab. He stayed in the hospital for 7 days. He received pretty much a standard immunosuppression program of cells of prednisone. At that time, in 2006, we have not generic, we have brand immunosuppression. So then Aurelio eventually started to lose kidney function, and then we switched it to sirolimus and MMF, and then he eventually lost his graft in 2018, and he's been around in hemodialysis for, I don't know, 2 years, and I think he's getting started for another living-related kidney transplant. By now, Aurelio, he has Social Security, and I think he's going to get a transplant living-related kidney with Social Security. So we here in Mexico follow the Declaration of Istanbul, which is about we don't allow, I mean, we don't encourage transplant tourism, and we don't, you know, it's completely legal. And why is illegal? Because we have this general health law, which is published and, you know, it's law by federal administration, and there's title which talks about donation and transplant. And then one of the parts is in Spanish and the other one is in English, and we're not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to concentrate that the commerce of organ, tissue, and cells is completely forbidden. And donation is based on altruism, lack of profit, and also confidentiality. So, and the cell procurement, the organ procurement is basically ruled by way of no cost. And the other thing that we have in Mexico is that you have a living donor and it's not related to you. They should be formally consented in front of an attorney of law, which is basically a document that says that the donation is altruistic and is by freedom of will, and there's no compensation. That's also regulated by law. So, just brief note, if you have a patient, and actually I have known a couple of these patients, they phone me because they're from Veracruz, and actually doing a workup here by now, in the private hospital, because mostly people who are in the U.S., they don't have a Social Security because they're living in the U.S. I'm doing right now a protocol, a workup, and someone who lives in Pennsylvania, actually, who has a donor here, his brother. I'm studying the brother as a donor here in Veracruz. And then after that, once we finish the donor and see if he can donate his kidney, we're going to bring the recipient from Pennsylvania, and when we're going to do the PRA, we're going to do a cross match, and we're going to study the patient as much as we can. And hopefully the patient will bring us information from the U.S. because I don't mind. I don't mind if somebody send me the cardiac workup from the U.S. because it's pretty valid for me. So if people from Mexico live in the U.S. and they have a family here in Mexico who can donate his kidney, they can fly here and we can do the surgery. It's improbable to come to the U.S. for a donor to go to the U.S. and donate a kidney because they're not legal residents. They're going to be visitors. So I guess in the U.S., from the last time I do remember, they're not allowed to fly and meet tourists and get us an nephrectomy over there. So as you can see, first of all, it's regulated by law that the transplant donation. So, and we transplant centers have the final word. If we see that somebody's buying a kidney, Basically we don't do the transplant. We say we find a medical excuse and say, you're suitable for a transplant and blah 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 blah, and we deny them and we decline the donor. So, and the other thing we have is we have to make sure that the attorney at law is completely sure that there's no compensation. So, and we don't transplant them if they don't bring that. If they're relatives, yes. If they're brothers, sisters, we do the transplant. But if they're, for example, like a distant cousin or somebody who's, not related, they have to bring this declaration by the attorney, and we basically do a fairly picky workup to make sure that there's no money about it. So anyway, so we try not to do transplant tourism. It's not permitted. It's not encouraged, it's not allowed, it's forbidden. And in my case, for example, and the rest of our team, we're not going to arrest for medical credentials for doing it. So just to, just not to bore you anymore and to conclude this talk, and I hope that you guys can like it. And I'm open for any questions that you have. I'm glad to answer them. And then I want again really thank Dave for the opportunity to talk. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to see you actually on the screen, because last year we were supposed to see you at the ATC, but we didn't have it. So hopefully by 2022 we can see each other at the ATC and drink coffee. The conclusions that we have is this. Transplant organization in Mexico is not really completely standardized. SENATRA is the federal administration that supervises transplant activity. It basically was our numbers, but it's not that completely, supervised. Each transplant center has its own protocols. I mean, we basically do what we think we do. The protocols depend mostly on the program director training and influence. As you can see, my training was in the US, so all my influence is from the US. People who have a program director who were trained in Spain or in Europe or somewhere else, they might have a European influence. But here in Veracruz, we do have a US influence. We do talk about the PTS, for example. In all disease donors, we use KDPI, we use PTS. Even though it's not regulated, we try to follow the rules as you guys do. Surgical procedures are pretty much the same. Immunosuppression protocols, as you can see, are fairly viable, and we always try to do things, move around a little bit in terms of getting research done. Most of our immunosuppressants are generic, and the problem is not that they're generic. The problem is that they change companies, so we have to jump around in terms of immunosuppression levels almost every month. Transplant programs in Veracruz have very good kidney transplant activity. We don't do livers. I'm 51. I'm not going to do a liver anymore in my life. If somebody comes up here and was trying livers, I'm going to help him, but I'm not going to do it myself. Transplant, all my fellows were trained in kidneys only. And they can do organ procurements and they can procure livers and everything, but they don't do kidneys. Transplant research in Veracruz is active, as you may see, and it's mostly based on results and outcomes. That's the best way to show the rest of the transplant programs and the rest of the world that we do things right and we have good outcomes. Transplant tourism is not allowed and it's not encouraged in Mexico and Veracruz as well. And there's two other things you should know about Veracruz. The first one is La Bamba. La Bamba was not composed by the Lobos. Don't be fooled by anything and the movie and stuff. As you can see, La Bamba is a Mexican folk song originally from the state of Veracruz. People from Veracruz are very proud of La Bamba. I can let the Lobos play it a little bit, and it's a very nice song. And for example, when we go to the baseball stadium to watch a baseball game here, they play La Bamba by the Lobos, but it's a folk song, which actually nobody knows who wrote it. And the other thing you should know about Veracruz is this.
Gustavo, you may have to narrate because we're not hearing the sound. Oh,
Okay.
oh, that is nice.
This is how you drink coffee here in Veracruz, Dave.
That is wonderful. And that is the world's oldest coffee shop, right?
Yes, you're right. The oldest one here in the continent. There's another coffee shop which is all older than this one, but it's in Europe actually.
Okay. How long has it been in Veracruz?
Since 1808.
1808.
Up and running without any interruption.
And they now have 3 locations in Veracruz, but they need to franchise throughout to Portland, right?
They're gonna do it. Hopefully, you're gonna be the owner of the franchise, but it's gonna be difficult because there's only three locations in Veracruz, and there's no other locations in Mexico in the whole country.
Wonderful.
So anyway, I think, how do you stop this? Well, I hope that's my presentation. I hope that you guys like it, and I'm more than open to talk to you guys on, about anything about that you might have questions. That is not the coffee, actually, transplant, or even coffee. Don't worry. How do we share the screen?
Could you tell us about your organ procurement organization? How does that work?
Well, as a difference of you guys, the organ procurement organization is not state-wise. Every hospital has their own OPO, and they correlate in terms of systems. For example, the Social Security Hospital, they have here in the state of Veracruz, they have 3 big hospitals. One is in Jalapa, which is the state capital. The other one is in Orizaba, which is like a 2-hour drive from here. Those 2 hospitals, they do have their own OPO or the procurement coordinators. So basically, what happens is they do have a patient who has who has brain death. They declare him, they consent him, and after that they phone us. And they phone us and say, we have a donor over here, and then we drove because it's like a 2-hour drive. So in the state authorities, which is almost like Senatra, they are informed that we have a donor, but they don't, how do you say it? They don't coordinate anything. It's mostly between hospitals. So basically, for example, in this town, in Veracruz, since I'm the program director of all the 2 hospitals, if we have a donor that is in the general hospital, and then we don't have a transplant candidate over here, basically what we do is I do the procurement, or I send Lucy, or Lucy goes, or Pedro goes, and then we procure over there, and then we transplant here in the Social Security. Or if we don't have candidates here in Social Security, we can send it to the private hospital. We basically work as a small OPO locally, and then we share with other ones. Sometimes we can have organs that are offered from other states, but that is like a linear relationship, which means that Social Security organs are offered to Social Security hospitals. For example, in the neighboring state, which is Puebla, if they have a donor and they don't have a recipient, they can phone us and say, okay, we have a donor, blah, 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 and we'll decide if we take the organs or not. So basically, the organs don't fly a lot here. They do, as much as we send them, for example, in terms of livers, we will send them to Mexico City, and kidneys, basically a 2-hour, 3-hour drive.
And do you maintain your own lists, or is there a national organization which maintains the lists?
No, we do maintain our own list. I mean, the national organizations, and as you say, they can see our list, but we are the captors of our list. We do make the changes. We enlist patients. We put the patients on the list. We take patients on the list. They only see the list. They don't do any modification. That's why they only have this statistics that I show you, the amount of patients that are waiting. Hello.
Does anyone else have questions?
This is Rob Rope, one of the Gen F folks. Thanks for your talk. It's very helpful. Hello. I'm wondering if there are any patients who can't get Social Security, if there are work requirements for getting Social Security insurance or public insurance that limit access to transplant, or is it all availability, medical illness decisions?
Well, Dr. Rowe, the idea is that if somebody works in a formal work, and what means, for example, any industry and factory or whatever formal industry they're entitled to Social Security. Who's an informal worker? People who sells stuff over the street, or sometimes small, I don't know, people who has, for example, a small grocery store. Unless they conform, this store becomes like a real business, and they're entitled to Social Security. So, but if you have, if you work, for example, in a steel company or construction or I don't know, school teacher, they do have Social Security, and they can have access to transplant care. They can have access to immunosuppression. The only problem is, as you can see, if you cover, if we cover in Social Security 80% of the population, it takes quite a while to get a transplant sometimes.
Thank you. That's helpful to understand.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez. This is Joe Lockridge, one of the one of the transplant nephrologists. I think it's always a good thing to check in and see how your neighbors are doing. And so thank you for giving us that nice overview. Mexico is a beautiful country with beautiful people, and I've certainly missed traveling there this past year. I wonder, it seems as if the percent of transplants, kidney transplants that you do compared to patients on the wait list is very similar to the percentage of transplants that we do here in the United States compared to the wait list. And if I understood the graph correctly, 2/3 of your kidney transplants are from living donors, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And I think that's a very impressive percentage. What do you owe that success to of living donation?
That's Dr. Lockridge, thank you very much for saying that to beautiful Mexicans. Mexicans are not as beautiful as you would want, but anyway, we try to be nice guys. Why? That's the unknown answer, actually, because we really don't know. I think the idea is that we don't have as much disease organ donors as we wanted. So I guess it's about psychology. I guess it's about Mexican family relationships. It's about a lot of things that people offer volunteers for a kidney. We do have brothers, sisters. We do have collections of wives and husbands. And I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I can ask Lucy, which is next to me. ¿Por qué tenemos, I'm guessing it in Spanish, ¿por qué tenemos tantos pacientes de vivo relacionado? ¿Qué se debe?
A lo que dijo, o sea, cómo son las familias aquí en México.
She thinks it's pretty much the same thing about families, and so, and the other thing we have is that we do accept, in terms of living donors, we do accept whatever. Sometimes we do have extended living donors. I mean, like if they do have a touch of creatinine and stuff. For example, I do remember when I did my fellowship in Iowa that in terms of 2 or 3 renal arteries, I don't remember doing related with 2 or 3 renal arteries as much. I mean, here is natural common things. I mean, we do 2 or 3 arteries without any trouble. And it's not a contraindication. It used to be, and now it's not. But we don't, if the patient has like 2 ureters, for example, we take it. And since kidney function is okay, and we don't, as long as we don't do harm. So we're pretty open to living donation.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and hopefully hopefully next year we can all get together at the ATC and connect again. But
Now I want to meet all your team, actually. By now, I want to meet all your team if I go to ATC because it's, I would love to.
yes, yes, and I guess that's one good thing about the pandemic. Is it's allowed us to do these virtual talks that are so much easier to do now than they were before. So I guess there is a silver lining. Thanks again.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much, all of you, for listening. I hope that my English was not as rusty as I thought it was. Reading English in public is quite difficult for me, actually. It's been for years and years and years. So anyway.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your English is much better than my Spanish.
Well, Dr. Barry, no. Actually, it's awful. The English is awful and awful and awful. But anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Barry. Well, I guess that should do.
I should do it.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, that was a great talk, Gustavo. That was really good. Really enjoyed that.
I hope you like it. I don't know. Well, you guys have it over there. I mean, you can use it for whatever reasons you